the greatest voice of a generation, a woman who could make stadiums weep with a single note, and a tragic fall that broke the world's heart. Whitney Houston didn't just sing, she transcended. Her voice was a gift that seemed almost supernatural, a technical perfection combined with emotional depth that no one has matched since. But behind the flawless performances and record-breaking success was a woman battling demons that would ultimately destroy the very instrument that made her immortal. If you want the untold stories behind music's most legendary voices, subscribe to Version Vault and hit that notification bell. We're about to explore 8 versions of Whitney Houston, from heaven-sent prodigy to eternal icon. Version 1. The Voice of Heaven. In 1985, a 22-year-old from Newark, New Jersey, released her self-titled debut album and did something unprecedented. She proved that technical perfection could dominate pop radio. Whitney Houston's voice wasn't just good, it was otherworldly. The control, the range, the power combined with delicacy. She could whisper and break your heart, then belt and shake your soul. Saving all my love for you. How will I know? Greatest love of all. 3 #1 hits from a debut album. This wasn't just success, it was dominance. But what made Whitney special wasn't just the technical ability, it was the feeling. When Whitney sang about love, you believed her. When she sang about pain, you felt it. When she hit those notes, you knew you were witnessing something rare. She was America's sweetheart, beautiful, elegant, graceful. Her image was carefully crafted by Clive Davis and Arista Records. She was wholesome enough for adult contemporary radio, powerful enough for R&B stations, and polished enough for pop crossover. This version of Whitney was pristine. No scandals, no controversies, just pure, undeniable talent, wrapped in a package that appealed to everyone. Her gospel roots showed in every performance. Growing up singing in the New Hope Baptist Church in Newark, she learned from her mother, Sissy Houston, a renowned gospel singer. She was mentored by her cousin Dionne Warwick and godmother Aretha Franklin. Music royalty raised music royalty. The voice of heaven had arrived, and the world couldn't get enough. Version 2. The Superstar. If the first album introduced Whitney, the second made her a phenomenon. Whitney, released in 1987, debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200, the first album by a female artist to do so. 4 #1 singles. I Wanna Dance with Somebody. Didn't We Almost Have It All? So Emotional. Where Do Broken Hearts Go? 7 consecutive #1s. A Guinness World Record. Whitney Houston wasn't just a star. She was rewriting the record books. I Wanna Dance with Somebody became her signature song of joy. Infectious, uplifting, impossible not to sing along to. The production was pristine 80s pop perfection. And that voice, playful yet powerful, effortless yet electrifying. She was everywhere. MTV played her videos constantly. Radio couldn't escape her. Award shows became Whitney Houston showcases. The Grammys, American Music Awards, Soul Train Awards. She collected trophies like they were going out of style. But here's where the first cracks appeared. Not in her voice, but in public perception within the Black community. At the 1989 Soul Train Awards, Whitney was booed. The accusation, she wasn't black enough. Her music was too pop, too white, too crossover. The pain on her face was visible. This was her community, and they were rejecting her. The superstar was learning a cruel lesson. Success at this level comes with impossible expectations. Be black enough, but not too black. Be pop enough, but not too pop. Appeal to everyone while staying authentic to someone. Whitney was trapped in a box of other people's expectations, and slowly, imperceptibly, the pressure was building. Version 3. The National Treasure. January 27, 1991. The Super Bowl. The Gulf War had just begun. America was anxious, divided, uncertain. And then Whitney Houston sang the national anthem. What happened next wasn't just a performance. It was a moment of national unity. Her rendition of The Star-Spangled Banner is considered the greatest of all time. Powerful, emotional, perfect. It became a hit single. It became a cultural touchstone. Whitney had transcended music celebrity. She was now an American icon. But 1992 brought something even bigger. The Bodyguard. The movie wasn't supposed to be a masterpiece. It was a vehicle for Whitney to transition to film. Kevin Costner was the established star. Whitney was the newcomer to acting. Then the soundtrack dropped. I Will Always Love You. Dolly Parton's country ballad, reimagined as a soul-crushing power ballad, became one of the biggest singles in history. It stayed at #1 for 14 weeks. The soundtrack sold over 45 million copies worldwide, becoming the best-selling soundtrack of all time. That opening a cappella note, holding it for what felt like forever, became iconic. The build, the restraint, then the explosion of emotion in the chorus. It was technical mastery in service of pure feeling. This version of Whitney was untouchable. She had conquered music, she had conquered film. She had the voice, the beauty, the success, the world at her feet. She married Bobby Brown in 1992, the bad boy R&B singer and America's sweetheart. The media called it a mismatch. Whitney called it love. But behind the fairy tale, something was shifting. The pressure of perfection, the constant scrutiny, the impossible standards, the need to be everything to everyone. The national treasure was at her peak. But peaks don't last forever, and the fall, when it came, would be devastating. Version 4, the troubled icon. The marriage to Bobby Brown became the turning point, though not in the way the media portrayed it. The narrative was simple. Bad boy corrupts good girl. Bobby introduced Whitney to drugs. Bobby pulled her down. Bobby ruined Whitney. But reality was more complex. Whitney later admitted she had experimented with drugs before Bobby. The marriage didn't create her demons. It gave them permission to surface. What Bobby offered wasn't corruption, it was permission to be imperfect. Permission to rebel against the pristine image she'd been forced to maintain. Permission to be messy, real, human. But that permission came with consequences. By the mid-90s, people close to Whitney noticed changes. She was late to rehearsals. Her weight fluctuated. Her demeanor shifted. The joy that once radiated from her seemed dimmed. The 1996 album, The Preacher's Wife soundtrack, was successful, but the promotion was minimal. Whitney seemed disengaged, going through the motions. Performances became inconsistent. Some nights she was brilliant. Other nights, the voice, that perfect heaven-sent instrument, cracked, faltered, failed to hit notes that used to be effortless. Fans made excuses. She's tired. She's been working nonstop. She needs rest. But those close to her knew the truth. Cocaine and marijuana were no longer recreational. They were regular. The drug use that had been controllable was becoming compulsive. This version of Whitney was caught between two worlds: the public image of perfection and the private reality of addiction. She was still Whitney Houston to the world, but she was losing herself in the process. The troubled icon was still beloved, still respected, still selling records. But the foundation was cracking, and the world was starting to notice. Version 5, the fading queen. By the turn of the millennium, hiding Whitney's struggles became impossible. The 2000 Oscar performance of Over the Rainbow was alarming. Her voice, once flawless, was raspy and strained. She looked gaunt. The internet exploded with concern and criticism. The Hawaii airport incident in 2000. Authorities found marijuana in her luggage. The charges were eventually dropped, but the damage to her image was done. Then came the interview that became infamous. In 2002, Diane Sawyer sat down with Whitney and Bobby for a primetime special. Whitney was defensive, combative, insistent that everything was fine. When asked about drug use, she delivered the line that became a tragic meme: "Crack is whack." She admitted to using marijuana, alcohol, and prescription pills. But crack? Crack is cheap. I make too much money to ever smoke crack. Oh, the denial was heartbreaking because everyone could see the truth she wouldn't admit. The 2002 album, Just Whitney, underperformed. Her voice on the recordings was noticeably damaged. The runs weren't as clean. The power wasn't as strong. The control was slipping. Concert cancellations became frequent. When she did perform, fans winced. The woman who once hit every note perfectly was now struggling with basics. Videos of failed performances spread online. The comments were cruel, but reflected a painful truth. Whitney's voice was dying. Her appearance changed dramatically. The weight loss, the erratic behavior in public, the glazed look in interviews. Paparazzi photos showed a woman who looked nothing like the vibrant superstar of a decade earlier. The fading queen was losing everything that made her exceptional. Her voice, the thing that defined her, that made her immortal, was being destroyed by the very substances she claimed to control. Friends staged interventions. Family pleaded. Fans prayed. But addiction doesn't respond to love or logic. It only takes. By 2004, Whitney Houston was a cautionary tale. The girl with the voice from heaven had fallen to earth, and the landing was brutal. Version 6, the comeback attempt. In 2007, Whitney finally admitted herself to rehab. She filed for divorce from Bobby Brown. She was trying to reclaim her life. The 2009 album, I Look to You, was meant to be her resurrection. Clive Davis was back. Alicia Keys and R. Kelly wrote songs. The marketing positioned it as a comeback. And commercially, it worked. The album debuted at #1. Lead single, I Look to You, was well received. The world wanted to believe in Whitney again, but the voice told a different story. Listening to I Look to You was heartbreaking for longtime fans. The instrument was damaged. The range was diminished. The runs were labored. She could still convey emotion, still deliver a performance, but the technical perfection was gone forever. The Oprah interview in 2009 showed a Whitney who was honest about her struggles in a way she'd never been before. She talked about her lowest moments. She talked about Bobby. She talked about addiction with raw honesty. He was my drug, she said about Bobby Brown. It was deflection, but it was also truth. The relationship had been toxic, a mutual destruction pact disguised as love. The comeback tour that followed was painful to watch. Some nights were decent. Many nights were disasters. Videos of her struggling to sing her own hits went viral. The comments section became a referendum on whether she should retire. Critics were divided. Some applauded her courage to come back. Others suggested she was damaging her legacy with every failed note. The comeback attempt showed Whitney's determination, but also revealed the irreversible damage. Addiction had stolen not just years of her life, it had stolen the voice that defined her existence. She was trying. She was fighting. But some things, once broken, can't be fully repaired. Version 7, the fragile legend. The final years of Whitney's life were marked by a woman fighting ghosts she couldn't defeat. The Nothing But Love World Tour in 2010 was met with mixed reviews at best, devastating criticism at worst. European audiences booed. Videos showed her struggling, forgetting lyrics, unable to hit basic notes. Australian promoters demanded she see a doctor before performances. The Sydney show was particularly brutal. Fans walked out mid-performance. The backlash was intense. Whitney cancelled and rescheduled repeatedly. Each cancellation fueled speculation. Each rescheduled show was met with anxiety. Would she show up? Would she be able to perform? By 2011, those close to her were terrified. She looked frail. Her behavior was erratic. There were reports of relapse, of partying, of the old destructive patterns resurfacing. Her last television performance was on The X Factor in 2011, singing, I Didn't Know My Own Strength. The song choice was poignant. A woman who had overcome so much, singing about resilience. But her voice was shot. The performance was painful to watch. The fragile legend was a woman trapped in a nightmare loop. She wanted to be clean. She wanted to perform. She wanted to reclaim her glory. But addiction doesn't care about your dreams or your legacy. Friends worried she wouldn't make it to 50. Those close to her tried interventions, tried getting her help, tried everything. But you can't save someone who can't save themselves. The world watched with a mixture of pity and frustration. Why couldn't she just stop? Why couldn't the greatest voice of a generation beat this? Because addiction doesn't care about talent. It doesn't respect greatness. It only consumes. Version 8, The Eternal Voice. February 11th, 2012. The Beverly Hilton Hotel, the night before the Grammys. Whitney Houston was found unresponsive in a bathtub. Cocaine, marijuana, Xanax, and Benadryl in her system. Heart disease exacerbated by cocaine use. Accidental drowning. She was 48 years old. The world stopped. The news spread instantly. Disbelief, grief, shock. How could the voice be silenced? The funeral at New Hope Baptist Church, where it all began, was broadcast globally. Stevie Wonder performed, R. Kelly sang, Kevin Costner delivered a eulogy that captured what made Whitney special. She was the girl next door who could sing like an angel. But here's what's remarkable about death and legacy. It crystallizes truth. After Whitney died, the narrative shifted. The jokes stopped. The criticism ended. What remained was appreciation for what she gave us. That voice, when it was perfect, was truly a gift. No one has matched it since. Not in technical ability, not in emotional power, not in that combination of strength and vulnerability. Young artists cite Whitney as their inspiration. Beyoncé, Jennifer Hudson, Ariana Grande, Christina Aguilera, They all studied Whitney's technique, tried to capture that magic. I Will Always Love You plays at weddings worldwide. I Wanna Dance with Somebody fills dance floors across generations. Greatest Love of All inspires people who weren't even born when it was released. The eternal voice exists now in a space beyond human frailty. The recordings don't show the struggle, they only show the genius. Documentaries have explored her life more honestly. Whitney, 2018, and Whitney Houston, I Wanna Dance with Somebody, 2022, showed the complexity behind the icon, the childhood trauma, the questions about her sexuality that she never felt free to explore, the impossible pressures of perfection. Whitney Houston's story is tragic, but it's also triumphant. A girl from Newark became the greatest voice of her generation. She broke records, she crossed barriers, she inspired millions. Yes, she fell. Yes, addiction destroyed her. Yes, her ending was heartbreaking. But when you hear that voice, truly hear it in its prime, hitting notes that seem impossible, you understand why she's immortal. The eternal voice can never be silenced, because greatness, once recorded, lives forever. 8 versions of Whitney Houston. 8 chapters in a story of transcendent talent and tragic humanity. From the voice of heaven to the superstar who conquered everything. From the national treasure at her peak to the troubled icon hiding pain. From the fading queen losing her gift to the comeback attempt that revealed irreversible damage. From the fragile legend barely holding on to the eternal voice that will never die. Whitney's story isn't just about music. It's about the price of perfection. About a woman who was never allowed to be human, only exceptional. About how we worship talent while ignoring the person carrying it. She gave us the blueprint for vocal perfection. She showed us that power and emotion could coexist. She crossed racial divides when that still mattered in music. She became an icon, and she suffered in ways we couldn't see until it was too late. If this exploration of Whitney's legacy moved you, subscribe to Version Vault and hit that notification bell. We're uncovering the real stories behind every music legend, the triumphs and the tragedies. What's your favorite Whitney Houston song? Share it in the comments and let's celebrate the voice that changed music forever. Rest in power, Whitney. Your voice was a gift to the world, and we're still listening.